to our first masterclass of the autumn season. This is our financial services masterclass with Osborne Clarke. We've got a fab panel today and a lot to get through, so I'm just going to quickly run through some bits that I wanted to let you know about, and then we'll get started. One thing I wanted to flag is our annual careers conference coming up towards the end of the year in November and December, Law Careers Net Live. Applications are now open and close on the 30th of October. So if you're interested in meeting firms like Osborne Clarke, please do apply. My colleague will send a link into the chat for you to take a look and find out a bit more information about that. One of the things we always do to get started with our masterclasses is to just have a look at some learning outcomes. So I'm just going to pop a sorry, not learning outcomes, just want to find out how much you guys know about financial services. So I'm just going to pop a poll on the screen. So if you could answer that for me. So how much do you know? Absolutely nothing, a little, a lot, or are you a complete expert? Share results. So we've got absolutely nothing, 21% of you, and then nearly 70% saying a little. So it's great that you're here today. And then we just want to find out what stage you're at as well. So I'm just going to stop sharing this poll. So are you a first year law student, second year, third year, non-law, postgraduate, or in work? Perfect. We'll share those results for the panel. Hopefully you can see that. So what stage are you at? We've got majority second year postgraduate in work, but we also have a number of non-law students and first year law students as well. Just going to run through some quick house rules. So first and foremost, please make sure that you use the online question tool to post any of your questions. I'll be posting them to our speakers throughout the event. And please do use this tool as well if you have any audio or visual problems, and someone from the team will be able to help you with that. This masterclass will be recorded as well, and the recording of the session will be sent to all registrants afterwards. So do look out for that, and it will be available on our YouTube channel shortly too. Please make sure that you post about the masterclass on social media. Send us your key takeaways after the event as well. It's always lovely to hear about. And then just a reminder that we have loads of other masterclasses coming up over the autumn term. So please check out the LTN events page for all of these. Our next one is on Wednesday next week, and it's all about starting out in law. And we'll cover the basics of launching a legal career, including what you should do in your first year of university, how to research and apply to future employers, and lots more. Okie dokie, let's get started. So first of all, I'm just going to ask each of our panelists to do a quick introduction. So Jo, if we could come to you first for that.
Hi, I'm Jo. I'm an associate in the Financial Institutions Group at Osborne Clarke. I've got a particular focus on payments, consumer finance and financial regulation. I've been at Osborne Clarke for about 10 years now, in a variety of different roles, but currently I'm a qualified associate, and I've been in the team about a year and a half.
Wow, thank you so much. And Charlie?
Hi everyone, Charlie Crowne here. I'm a partner at Osborne Clarke. I've been at OC for about 10 years as well. I am a litigation lawyer, and I specialise in financial services litigation, which is a combination of contentious regulatory work, but also civil disputes within the financial services sector.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And Tom?
Hi there, Tom Bussy here. I'm a partner in the debt finance group at Osborne Clarke. I've been here about 18 years and I've always worked in financial services, and the nature of what I do means that there's always a financial institution involved in the transaction. I work across the sector for large banks and then lots of fintechs and everything in between. Brilliant,
thank you. And then finally, Claudia.
Hi everyone, I am an associate in the Financial Services Regulatory team at OC. I've been at the firm since 2018, so 7 years, and I've been working at the Financial Services Regulatory team for the past 3 years.
Brilliant, thank you all. And just a reminder, if you do have any questions for the panel today, please do use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to those shortly. To start with, we're just going to do a quick overview of the area. So Charlie, coming to you first, could you tell us a little bit about the different types of financial services lawyer?
Sure. Well, they are many and varied, and it really depends how you sort of define financial services lawyer, which is such a lawyer answer, I'm aware. But I suppose what most firms do is they have a sort of core financial services practice, which will consist of a regulatory advisory group, which in OC's case we refer to as our financial institutions group. You've already heard Joe and Claudia refer to that. So that's our sort of core non-contentious regulatory advisory team, who may have, you know, particular specialisms within financial services regulatory. We have a funds team as well, which, as the name suggests, advise investment funds. We have a banking and finance, debt finance team, which you've heard Tom is not only a member of, but leads. And then we have a contentious team that focuses on a mixture of contentious regulatory and civil litigation. And then, depending on other firms, how they're structured, they might have a separate insurance team. But in addition to those sort of core service lines, there'll be a load of sort of add-on ancillary service lines that provide financial services input. So that might include data protection specialists. That's increasingly important within the FS sector, tax, specialist employment teams, M&A work within the regulated sphere. So lots and lots of other ancillary services, but hopefully that gives you an idea of sort of the core focus of most larger firms.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. And then, Joe, just coming to you, how specialist is this kind of type of work? And would you say that you only do the work that you're doing, or can you get involved in other elements as well?
I'd say that, yes, financial services is quite specialist, but the sorts of work that we do can be quite broad within that specialism. So if I'm thinking about my day-to-day tasks that keep me busy, there'll be some sort of payments and e-money regulatory queries. So the sort of rules that let you send money through like your favorite apps and things like that. I might also look at some consumer finance agreements or undertake a due diligence exercise, looking at maybe whether a company's conduct is in compliance with its regulatory requirements. And then we don't just do our work in isolation. As we said earlier, there's lots of sort of cross practice. So we'll regularly team up with commercial colleagues if there's a data or privacy issue, or the corporate team if they've got a deal, which means that there's going to be a change in control. There's also we may also refer matters to the disputes team if we've got a client that's having a bit of a tricky chat with their regulator. So although the work is specialist, there's lots of variety, lots of teamwork, and no 2 days look the same.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Sounds like lots of cross-team collaboration, which is great. And Tom, we've spoken about the different types of financial services lawyers and how specialist it is. How would you say, if it does differ, how would you say it differs from other sectors within the profession?
I mean, there are similarities across clients in different sectors, of course, but if I were to pick out the things that I would say make things different for financial services is, firstly, and this isn't unique, but it's a highly regulated sector, so you've got that to tackle. I think there's a huge amount of breadth within the sector, both in terms of the types of clients. So you've got these global international banks at the one end, and then you have fintechs at the other end, which might just be a handful of people who are trying to solve for something that might affect you or me, rather than affects massive corporation in a different country or what have you. And then you've got, again, a vast range of products, ranging from businesses that are focused on mortgages or savings accounts or foreign exchange or whatever it is that might be more kind of easy to understand, going into these businesses that are very focused on corporate issues. So dealing with highly structured lending or hedging or derivative products, which would make very little sense to you unless you understood more about financial services as a whole. I think it's also true that financial services touches lots of other sectors. So an energy company will need to have banks that lend to it will need to have products in the financial services sector that it uses, as will telecoms companies, as also. So there's lots of scope for working across sectors within financial services. And the other thing I would say is that it tends to be the case that the people we work with are pretty sophisticated and very bright, frankly. Whether that's working for these big organizations where they have big structures of lots of lawyers or in-house lawyers and lots of clever people doing clever things, but also the startups tend to be run by people who have just got really bright ideas and motivation, and it tends to be quite rewarding working with those types of people, I would say.
Brilliant, thank you. We have a question here from the audience about how junior lawyers would typically choose between specialising in these particular areas. So how, like, choosing between transactional work, disputes, regulatory matters. Claudia, is that something that you could chat about for us?
Yeah, sure. So I followed a typical route. I did the training contract, which was 2 years, over 6 seats. So within those 6 seats, I was able to choose different seats, a mixture of advisory or transactional work. So I think if you do 6 months in each seat, then you'll be able to understand what you like, either more advisory or transactional. And as a trainee, you get involved in different types of work within that seat. But when you qualify in the team, that's when you start thinking about where you want to specialize in. So, for example, in my team, within my team, there is different service lines, funds, consumer credit, payments, more general financial regulation. So people, when they qualify, they start thinking where they want to focus their practice.
Brilliant, thank you. That's super useful. And I think it would be also really nice to hear from each of you about the sorts of clients that you work for, and whether there's any overlap there. So Claudia, maybe just sticking with you for this one, and then we'll come to Charlie and then Tom.
Yeah, sure. Within a financial regulatory team, we ask for different types of clients. So, for example, investment banks like JPM, fintechs like Revolut, investment platforms, and other digital innovators like GoHenry or SquareTrade. So there is quite a bit of mixture of clients.
Brilliant. Lots of people and companies, organisations that I imagine a lot of attendees have heard of as well. And Charlie, what about you?
Yeah, there will be a huge amount of overlap in terms of the sort of contentious services that we provide for our existing OC clients. I guess where contentious work might be a bit different is we receive a lot of referrals in from other law firms and other professionals operating within the financial services sector for specific pieces of litigation. So they won't be a relationship with OC before, but
right.
For example, if a firm is being investigated by the FCA and it has several senior managers who are within the scope of the investigation, but they need independent legal advice, then the law firm acting for the firm will refer out the instruction to the individuals. So that's an example of how contentious work differs a little bit from non-contentious work in terms of the clients that we tend to act for.
Brilliant, thank you. And Tom, how about you? What does that look like for you?
Sure. So as I said, I'm a debt lawyer, so there needs to be. There are lots of firms that might borrow once in a while, but the firms I know the best are the ones who are constantly borrowing or lending. So on the lending side, we act for most of the large UK banks, some international banks, so Barclays, HSBC, for example. We also act for a number of credit funds who are funds that are lending direct to businesses. On the borrower side, my focus is on private equity funds who routinely buy businesses and need debt for that. Fintechs, I know the fintechs who are kind of themselves lending because they need to use debt to grow. there are other fintechs that don't really have the same need for debt and therefore wouldn't necessarily come to me. But if you're a fintech that is lending to consumers using AI or whatever you're doing, you will probably raise equity and use that equity to start. And then you'll get to a point where you've got a product and you'll want to grow that product and scale. And typically you'll access the debt markets to do that. And so I will spend quite a lot of my time with 3 or 4 fintechs who are very active and growing and constantly trying to raise more money. So that those are the types of clients I work for. And some of them are well known and quite a lot of them are not, because they're kind of B2B type, business to business type fintechs. It's one of those sectors where there are tons of companies that are well known because they are known to consumers, because you see them in the consumer world. And then there are lots of others that are providing solutions for corporates and businesses, which would mean nothing to most people, but are quite big companies and very good clients for us.
No, that makes loads of sense. And then I guess just interesting maybe to hear about the sorts of problems that you then help these clients with. So Jo, maybe coming to you on that one.
Yep, sure. So a big part of our role is helping clients launch new products. So they'll come to us with their new product or their service, and they'll want to make sure that they can offer it out to consumers without tripping any UK regulations. If they do, they'll ask us for structure to sort of maybe help them sit outside of the regulations, or if that's really not possible, they'll come to us for help with, the cleanest and the quickest route to authorization. Sometimes we'll have clients that are looking to expand their business more globally, so they'll want to know what the regulatory regime looks like across different jurisdictions. So we'll help them find out what the regulatory map will look like for their product launches across those different countries, and whether that would mean any changes to their features, pricing, product design, customer journey. We'll hold their hand throughout that whole stage of the journey. We might also have some clients saying to us, look, we're holding other people's money. What do we need to do with safeguarding? How do we safeguard that properly? Where do we segregate our client funds? So the more technical questions around that to help regulators be comfortable that our customers are holding their client money correctly.
Brilliant, thank you. And those interested in what Charlie's getting up to as well, stick around for our case study, which is coming up a little bit later on. And also lots of good questions coming in. So just a reminder to keep popping those into the chat. Jo, on just sticking with you, how international would you say your work can be?
Yeah, definitely. I obviously touched on it just now, saying that our clients can look to expand globally. We have lots of clients that have products not only in the UK, but want to reach that global market. From our team, we obviously advise from a UK law perspective only, but we do need to be aware of how EU regulations and other local rules might affect our clients' business. That means we do have to stay up to date with any sort of EU regulatory changes or any frameworks, PSD3, PSD2, which is now PSD3, PSRs, DORA for operational resilience. These are all things that from a UK side we still need to be aware of. We help clients to expand their businesses globally, which will mean that we take on, rather than a legal role, a bit more of a project management side. So we will help our clients find those right local experts in different countries to ask those questions about tailoring the product and reaching those markets to make sure that they stay within the regulations and the rules of that country. So that could be, a bit more sort of project management rather than purely legal tasks, and just, collating responses from everyone, checking that all questions for the client is answered, and then also a lot of billing as well. So a large part of our role when we're looking at international expansion products is also the non-legal tasks of arranging for all the experts to be paid for their advice. Our clients are international, the customers are international, so the work that we do in the UK is very international as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And just quickly, you referred earlier, someone's asking in the chat, you referred earlier to clients sitting outside of regulation. Someone's just asking what that means.
Of course. So when you're a regulated entity, it means that you have to comply with certain rules and regulations. So sometimes clients would like to structure their products so that it doesn't quite touch on those regulatory regimes. If you think previously about buy now, pay later, that type of credit offering was traditionally offered outside of regulation. So that meant that to be able to offer particular types of buy now, pay later products, the company didn't have to be regulated by the FCA. That's obviously now changing, and buy now, pay later is coming into the regulatory sphere. But that's just an example of how certain products and certain services may not need to be regulated.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And then Charlie, how do you support clients during financial crisis or regulatory investigations?
Yeah, so this is where a contentious lawyer's crisis management skill set comes in. And a lot of what we do when we're dealing with a client in a really sort of serious crisis or regulatory investigation is staying really calm, helping build a sort of structure to address the problem, and then taking them through the entire sort of journey of dealing with the problem until we get to a resolution. So obviously every case is slightly different, but generally we'd start with getting the right team together, both within the client and also at OC. So we've got the right experts, or the right level of expertise and the right level of seniority to address the crisis, and we're really clear who that team is, which is really important for legal privilege reasons. We could spend an entire hour talking about legal privilege and how it does and doesn't apply within an investigatory context, but suffice to say, it's quite important to get right. Once you've got your team together, the next stage is trying to stop whatever has gone wrong from happening if it's an ongoing problem. There then tends to be a period sort of fact-finding, trying to get to the bottom of what has happened. And so that might be interviewing witnesses, reviewing a lot of data. There might be a process of making initial notifications. So there might be insurers who need to be notified. There might be a regulator who needs to be notified. There might be contracts with third parties that require some sort of notification in response to the crisis. And then once you sort of establish what's happened factually, then generally there'll be a period of reporting. So producing a report into what has gone on. The audience for that report will vary. It might be for the regulator, it might be purely internal. And as you'd expect, we then advise on what to do next. And also, quite importantly, lessons learned to stop it happening again. And then once that period is over, it's dealing with whatever comes down the track next, whether that is a regulatory investigation or some sort of enforcement action or litigation claims coming into the company, or indeed claims that the company might want to bring. So it's dealing with the sort of the fallout and any sort of contentious work that flows out of the crisis. So that's a sort of a whistle-stop tour to how we tend to manage a crisis. But as I say, every crisis is slightly different.
Yeah, and a huge number of moving parts, so I can imagine. And Tom and Claudia, I'll come to you two for the next one. I was just wondering if you could chat a little bit about what a day at work might look like for you. As I think Joe mentioned at the start, no kind of 2 days are the same, but it'd be interesting to hear what a kind of a summary, I guess. So Tom, maybe coming to you first for that one.
Sure. So, I mean, there's obviously loads of different things that we do in the office, and some of those are quite internal facing around managing the firm, managing people, dealing with business planning and all of those things. But in terms of the clients who we work with, which is probably the more relevant point here, I'd say that there's a variety of different things that we do at different stages, and your day will be mixed up between those things. So if you think about business development, we do a lot of that, which could be seeing existing clients or contacts, or it could be going out to events and meeting people. It could be writing articles to try and reach new clients. We have client relationship management, which is spending time with your existing clients to make sure that that you touch new parts of that business, but also that you keep on top of what they're doing and able to help them, and making sure you understand what their needs are. And then within the transaction side, which is my focus, you have different phases to transaction. So you win the work. The initial job is kind of producing contracts for the transaction, which is usually quite a lot of drafting and a lot of work reviewing, and you spend a while getting those together. You then kind of share those with the client, discuss them with the client, and then you share them with the other party, and then you enter into a negotiation phase where you're maybe trading comments, having calls, sometimes meetings, although these days it's quite rare to have physical meetings, it's more Zoom like this. And then you get into an execution phase once you've kind of finished off the negotiation, you've got the contracts, and you know, the way that large transactions take, it's not just a question of printing off one document and signing it. You've often got multiple companies in multiple jurisdictions, and it can take several days to get something done. So I would say no day is different, but there are common themes in every day. And you know, you can have a day where you're just out doing business development, you can have a day where you're just looking at drafting something, you can have a day when you're on calls all day, or you can have a combination of all of those things. And then you throw in all the other bits that we do, as I say, internally, and it means that you know, well, it's very hard to give you a kind of standard day, but I would say that hopefully gives you a flavour of the types of things we do. Claudia,
that's super helpful. Thank you. Yeah, Claudia.
Yeah. So just to add, my work is a bit more advisory, mostly, but we also support on transactions or reviewing agreements or T's and C's. So it is a bit a mixture of both. Also, I think it also depends if you're working more remotely or from the office. I prefer to work from the office most of the days. It feels more social. You can grab coffee or lunch with your colleagues. Also, our offices are open plan, so you can just pop to someone's desk and ask a question, and especially at a more junior level, you learn a lot by osmosis, so I think it's quite important.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And Charlie, we heard a little bit about business development from Tom there. I was just wondering if you could touch on how the sorts of things that you would do in that area.
Yeah, so litigation is perhaps a little bit different to some other service lines, in that we're sometimes seen as a sort of a distressed purchase. So clients tend to come to us when something's gone wrong, rather than sort of their BAU activities. So in one sense, it's more difficult to sell because clients don't always want to listen to you talking about what could go wrong. But actually, because of some of the scale of some of the clients that we deal with, particularly on the financial services side of things, that they've always got something going on that is contentious. And in fact, you know, a lot of my bigger clients have an in-house litigation team. And so one of my jobs from a sort of client relationship perspective is to get to know the heads of litigation inside of big financial institutions, develop a relationship with them, and then hopefully when they've got work to give out, which, as I say, is pretty often, we're at the front of the queue because they like us. So there's that sort of client relationship management which Tom touched on, and also we routinely collaborate with other teams in pitching for work for clients. So very often when a client is looking to either develop a legal panel or add a law firm to a legal panel, they will ask the law firm to pitch for the work, and they'll be specific about which service lines they want to be pitched for, and that will very often include my area. And so we will collaborate with our teams to put our sort of best foot forward in terms of our credentials and why they should instruct us. And I've also touched already on sort of the way that the litigation market sort of works, and the sort of referrals between firms and other professionals within that context, and we get quite a lot of work through that route as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And Tom, just looking at an audience question here, off the back of that, how do you maintain those client relations? someone's asked, is it primarily through taking on cases, or are there other ways of keeping strong links to clients, and what does that look like?
Sure. I mean, the best way to keep clients is to do a really good job for them, because then they want to use you again, and that's the normal way. Most of our business development, frankly, is just doing a good job, hopefully. But you also have to keep abreast of team changes, people leaving, people coming in, and just keeping in touch with people, trying to work out who the next gen are coming through. If you work with a team at a client and there's a superstar person coming through who's going to be really important, it's important to make sure that you work that out and you talk to them, and you don't end up in a situation where they just think you're not interested in them because you're focused on their boss. So it's a variety of things. It's the main thing, as I say, is doing a good job and getting known to being very good at what you do. But there's lots of other ways in which we keep in touch with people. LinkedIn is a really interesting tool because people just pop up in new places, and then you can usually track them and get in touch with them. Sometimes you have people who you've known really well who maybe make a move to somewhere where they're not going to be instructing you. You don't talk to them for a couple of years, and then they pop up somewhere else, and tracking them and keeping in touch with them and then getting back in touch is quite important. There's always the old adage of you do your BD, you get busy, then you get quiet. You do your BD, you get busy, and you want to avoid that trap. You want to constantly be talking to people who might give you work, so that there's hopefully a constant stream of work. The other way of just going out, shaking trees, finding work, doing it, and then having nothing to do again is a bit of an own goal. So hopefully that's answered the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it's a skill that's kind of developed and practiced from the get-go with networking and just going out and talking to firms and asking those questions, and then just build on that skill. I
think the one thing to say about networking, which might be relevant to this group, is that you might think that people are just naturally good at networking. No one is naturally good at networking. It's really hard. It takes time. And the fact that someone who's 20 years older than you and has been working in an environment seems to be really good at it probably means that they felt as bad about it as you do at the moment, and they've just persevered and found a way of making it work. But I don't think anyone at a young age coming into work loves networking. It's not easy.
Horrible. I always find, I think it's one of those things where like if you have a list of questions or start, like even just one starter question to get you going can often just be that safety net that you need. 100% agree. And I suppose just thinking about kind of the audience that are here with us today, I think one of the things that is becoming more and more important to aspiring lawyers and those coming into the profession now is work-life balance and what that looks like. So Jo, I wondered if you could touch on this for us. What does that look like for, I guess, your area, and then for Osborne Clarke as well?
I think for us in the financial regulatory team, it's probably a lot steadier than other teams. If you think about mergers and acquisitions, for instance, where there's big pushes, for us in an advisory sense, it can be a bit more steady. Most weeks are completely manageable and quite predictable as well. But occasionally there will be a sprint if there's a client deadline for a product that they want to go live, or if we know that there's some new rules or regulations that are coming in. There'll be deadlines, obviously, for things like that. But if I think about the license applications that we do for clients who want to be licensed to bring new products to the market, they'll obviously have a deadline for when they want their work done and when they want their application to go in. So we'll have a rush to do their work, but we'll also have to balance that, knowing that the output that we're providing is going to be quite technical and the task will be quite lengthy. And obviously we want to get their application right first time. So there might be times where we're working longer hours to get those bits done. There's also times when we're supporting corporate transactions and we'll have to run to their deal timetable. So we will be kept busy making sure that we reach all of the milestones that we're supposed to. Other times, you know, work-life balance seems to be quite manageable. And as a team, we are very good at looking out for each other. We're very good at communicating what our workload is like. If someone is particularly quiet or if someone else is particularly under pressure, we all work together just to make sure that nobody gets overloaded.
Brilliant, thank you. And then Claudia, just coming to you, what would you say people in your practice area are talking about this year? Have there been any kind of significant changes or developments recently that you've had to keep on top of?
Yeah, there's lots of new developments within financial regulation. So firstly, the consumer duty was implemented a couple of years ago. The duty requires firms to deliver good outcomes for their customers. This is still a key focus for the regulator and the firms that are subject to the duty. Also, we have seen a greater focus on financial promotions and social media. We have seen that the FCA, which is the Financial Conduct Authority, has taken actions against influencers that illegally promote financial products. Another development is open finance, which is the next step after open banking. And what open finance will do is to enable sharing of data across a wide range of financial products like pensions and investments. Lastly, another trend or development we have seen recently are new measures proposed that are aimed to build a healthier investment culture within the UK and a focus for driving customers from cash deposits to more investment products. So these could be quite important and could mean an increase in retail investments across the UK in the coming years.
Brilliant, thank you. And then I guess just looking at how obviously the area itself is evolving and changing and being updated, how, Jo, do you see the role of a financial services lawyer kind of changing with the rise of fintech and digital currencies?
Well, I'd say we're certainly learning a new language. So my day, I'm using words like blockchain, tokenization, stable coins, crypto asset service providers, lots of new terms there. We're having to navigate fast-moving technologies, constantly evolving regulations. We've got the MiCA framework, which brings crypto assets into regulation in the EU. UK rules are expected to go live next year, so that's definitely going to keep us busy. It just goes to show that regulators are really focusing on crypto assets, particularly around cybercrime and anti-money laundering measures, and of course consumer protection as well. So yes, the landscape is moving really fast in this area, but the goal for us is still the same. You know, we're here to help clients who have great ideas reach the customers that they want to reach safely, sustainably. Yeah.
Brilliant. And Charlie, how do you keep on top of these changes? What sort of things do you do day to day?
I mean, it's really difficult. As you've heard, not only do we have developing regulatory regimes within the UK covering things that haven't been regulated before, like crypto, sustainable finance is another area. But you also have to sort of know what's going on in other jurisdictions. So, you know, apart from the standard things like going to talks, conferences, reading what your knowledge lawyer puts in front of you in terms of what's a really important thing that to be aware of, the slightly more comforting thing is you can't possibly be across everything. So as you've heard, either you need to specialize in some degree, or if you're a contentious lawyer, we tend to have a slightly more generalist understanding of the regulatory environment, which becomes very, very focused once we get involved in a particular dispute. So part of the sort of the skill set of a contentious lawyer is reading up and getting up to speed very quickly on whatever it is you happen to be litigating, and you become a subject matter expert in that thing for the duration of the case you're dealing with. And then quite often you just forget all about that issue once it's gone away and you move on to the next thing. which some people really enjoy. I do. It keeps things fresh. Some people prefer the sort of more steady, predictable approach of being an advisory lawyer, where you become a genuine subject matter expert in a few things. So yeah, it depends on your sort of personality, really.
Brilliant, thank you. And we've spoken about the impact of like fintech and digital currencies and what that looks like. Tom, what impact would you say that AI and tech has had on the way that you work?
I mean, it's a really big topic that we're constantly talking about internally and trying to work out how we can make our business more efficient using AI. I would say at the moment, in terms of the legal industry, it's still early days, and there are some the areas where AI obviously has application is where you're doing the same job repeatedly, and I think that's more relevant to the really massive global law firms who are maybe doing huge due diligence exercises where they're trying to look at hundreds of similar contracts and pulling out themes. We are using it in our business, but not to that degree. If we're looking at a due diligence exercise, we're probably looking at a smaller number of contracts, and you've got the thing to think about is how much is it costing to have this product versus what does it give you. And we're also not probably investing as much as the really large businesses, and we're not at the front end of that. But it's coming, and we're seeing more and more of those types of things coming into our business. We've got OC GPT, which is our version of ChatGPT, which people use. More relevant, I say, in financial services is that we definitely are seeing AI make massive changes amongst our clients. Fintechs in particular are using AI to do all sorts of things and disrupt and to win work. I've got a client who use AI to make credit decisioning in consumer lending. That typically a consumer loan or a bank, for example, would go through a credit process where they'd have credit officers who would look at various things and would make a decision, a yes/no decision on whether to make a loan available. This client is using AI tools to streamline that, to make it quicker and to reduce the cost. And they're growing hugely, and that's one example. But there will be lots and lots of other examples of where fintechs are using tech, AI and other tech to kind of solve for sort of inefficiencies, if you like, within the traditional way of doing things. And those inefficiencies tend to be human inefficiencies. And so we're constantly seeing clients with clever ideas, clever products, who grow very quickly and throw off lots of legal work when they're partnering with bigger companies or buying things or borrowing money to grow or whatever it is. So it's having a big impact on the client side in terms of the work that we do, and there may be other parts of the firm who see it more than I do, but at the moment it's definitely something that's coming, but it's not yet dominating, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing. I'm just conscious of time. And I know, Charlie, you have to dash off. So I was just wondering if we could just skip to the case study. If you could spend just a few minutes just summarising a recent piece of work that you've done, that would be super helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. So predictably, I'm going to talk about a dispute. And this is a dispute I'm currently advising on. It's for an investment bank. Can't say who it is because it's all confidential, as is most of my work. But I picked this as a case study because I think it's an interesting subject, but it also shows just how sort of international, cross-jurisdictional our work can be. So, very high level summary of the facts. This is a dispute between an international investment bank with offices all around the world and a hedge fund based in Mauritius. And we're advising the Asia trading desk of this investment bank. And the dispute is all about total return equity swaps, which is a form of derivative contract. I won't go into all the detail, but essentially it's a way for entities like hedge funds to gain access to a stock market in a jurisdiction that they might not have the permissions to trade in, and they gain access via the investment bank, who basically issue them with sort of synthetic shares. So instead of having to go out and buy the shares in the in this case, Indian stock market themselves, they essentially have a contract with the bank which says, okay, well, let's pretend you own the shares. And if the share price goes up, the bank will pay you the money. And if the share price goes down, you owe the bank the money. So it's sort of a synthetic way of gaining exposure to a stock market. And hedge funds really like this because, well, for a number of reasons, but principally it allows them to create leverage within a portfolio of investments. So they don't actually have to put up all the money to buy the shares in question. They can just create a pool of liquidity, which means that if the bank makes a margin call because their portfolio of synthetic shares have dipped in value, they're able to meet that call, but they don't necessarily have to put up the entire capital value of the shares. So those arrangements are all very complicated, and what disputes tend to arise around the issuing of those margin calls. So in this case, the hedge fund in question was really heavily exposed to a particular Indian entity, quite well known, and a scandal erupted around this particular entity. It was accused of bribery and corruption. Some short sellers produced a very damning investment report. And off the back of that report and various news articles that were flying around the world, the share price of that entity absolutely tanked. And that created a huge margin call. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that the investment bank made on the hedge fund because they were now deeply in the red in terms of their exposure. And so there was a real sort of intense 48-hour period where the hedge fund was negotiating with our client, the bank, in terms of how to solve this. No clear agreement was reached, and so our client, the bank, took the decision to start unwinding various positions that the hedge fund had entered into in order to sort of force that liquidity back into their portfolio to bring things closer to parity. Fast forward 6 months on, the hedge fund is really angry about what happened and the decisions that our client took to unwind those positions. The hedge fund says that various oral agreements were reached during that frantic period of activity where negotiations were ongoing, that we wouldn't unwind certain positions and we wouldn't take certain steps that we did take. And also they are alleging breach of various contractual discretions that we had to make decisions in this sort of crisis environment. And they're also alleging breach of various express provisions of the contractual framework that governs the relationship. So they're alleging losses around $60 million, so fairly high value claim. This is a claim that's been going on for about 9 months already, and we're only at the pre-action stage, so no one's actually sued anyone yet. We've just been exchanging letters with our opponents on the other side. But what we've been doing behind the scenes is the sort of internal investigation that I sort of outlined earlier. That it was a crisis because of the potential value of the claims that might come down the track. So we spent a lot of time with our clients trying to get to the bottom of the issue, gather the evidence we need in anticipation of a claim coming down the track. And having conducted that investigation, we feel like we're in a pretty good position. A lot of the key meetings were recorded. We've got pretty good evidence of what was said during those meetings. So we feel reasonably comfortable in rebutting the main sort of factual allegations that are being made at us in terms of what was said, what assurances were given. There is a lot of complexity around trying to interpret the contracts. This is an ISDA contract, which are quite complicated. And you've got the sort of jurisdictional complexity to deal with as well. I mean, these are all English law contracts, but we're dealing with a bank that's not headquartered in the UK, a hedge fund that's not headquartered in the UK, and we're disputing assets which were based in India. So it really is quite complicated jurisdictionally as well. So in terms of next steps, we're expecting a claim form to land pretty imminently, and then we will be in an English High Court litigation process, and we will manage that litigation hopefully through to a successful conclusion. But yeah, that's just a sort of a snapshot of the sort of higher value stuff that we do for our investment banking clients in particular.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Sounded very interesting and sound quite intense as well. I just would like to get to some of the audience questions, because we've had a fair few come through, so I've just been reading through them. Tom, lots of questions for you on what drew you to the financial services to start with, and what, I guess, elements of the firm have kept you there.
Sure. I mean, being honest, I didn't train at Osborne Clarke. I trained at Freshfields, one of the big firms. And I didn't go into law like so many do now, as far as I can tell, with a clear idea of where I wanted to go. And maybe that's just a sign of my age. I think people are a lot better informed now because they can do so much more research using the internet and so on than was possible back when I started. But I did a seat in finance, and then I moved around. I did restructuring, I did corporate, I did lots of other things. Ultimately, I went into finance because I just enjoyed the subject matter and I enjoyed the types of transactions. I found out relatively quickly that I preferred transactional work to contentious work or to advisory work. And then once I'd done that, I decided that finance was what I preferred because the transactions tend to be quite quick and the teams that we work on are a bit smaller than, say, corporate transactions where you have much larger teams. And the transactions aren't nearly as long as, say, a projects transaction, which can take months and months and months. So I landed up in finance. What's kept me here? I like the clients really. The real benefit of working with banks, I would say, and I do a lot of work with banks, is that you're working with professionals who are in the same way as you are. They've gone through a graduate scheme. They've reached a specialism. They've become very good at what they do. They are not usually as emotionally invested in what they're doing as maybe a business owner might be, which is a good thing because they can kind of come at things quite rationally, and it's not great. And I'm sure Charlie would be able to talk to this from some of his work. But when you're working with someone who is very emotionally invested in what they're doing, it can be quite difficult to advise them because they have a view on what they want to do, which isn't necessarily based on the legal perspective or what have you. So I've enjoyed the clients, I've enjoyed the subject matter. I've been lucky to work at 3 firms, all of which I've enjoyed working at, and I've been at OC for the longest period. A large part of enjoying the work comes down to the people you work with as well, not just the clients, but also your colleagues. And I've been fortunate that I've always worked in environments that I've really enjoyed. And so there hasn't ever really been a push away. As I say, the attraction has just been that I got to that place and enjoyed it and stuck with it, and that the rest is history. 20 odd years on, more, whatever. I'm not sure how long it is now, but yeah, I think it's probably other people will have a more focused story, but a lot of people I think just end up finding themselves doing something that they enjoy and stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's always nice to hear about the various routes in as well. Joe, I know you had a bit of an interesting route into the profession itself. Did you want to just touch on that?
Yeah, sure. I can talk about that. I've qualified via the Silex legal route. So that meant that I completed my law degree in the evenings whilst I was working full-time as a paralegal. And then instead of doing the traditional training contract of 2 years, I've completed 3 years of qualifying employment within my one practice group. This means I spent the whole time sitting within financial services, and I'm a specialist financial services lawyer. I found that the benefit of the Silex route is that the qualification time can kick in whilst you're studying. So instead of having to complete your formal academic stage and then do your 2-year training contract, which would be the traditional route, I was able to start my sort of 3 years of qualifying employment whilst I was still completing my academic stage. And then post-study, there would only be 1 year left of the sort of formal qualifying employment stage. So it could be seen as a faster route into qualifying as a lawyer than going down the traditional, solicitor training contract route. It does mean that instead of having the benefit of the 4 different seats and 6 months in each seat and to try my hand at lots of different areas of law, it meant that I have pretty focused skills in financial services. But during that time, I was also able to do 2 different secondments, which has given me a bit more of a broad knowledge than maybe I could have done if I had just, stuck within my FIG role. I've had a chance to work in-house twice. I've had a chance to look at commercial contracts and compliance. Lots of other skills that would kind of go alongside the traditional training contract route. But I found that the Silex route was good for me. So happy to answer any other questions about the Silex route if that's good for anyone on the call.
Brilliant, thank you. And just to flag that Silex have recently made some changes to their route, so do check on Law Careers.net or on the Silex website itself as well, just to make sure that you've got the most up-to-date information there. And then Claudia, your route wasn't incredibly traditionally linear, I guess, in the way that you got your training contract and that sort of thing. Did you want to just touch on that briefly?
Yeah, sure. So I did a training contract, as mentioned, but before that I worked 2 years as a paralegal at OC. So I think even if you do not get a training contract, as soon as you qualify, then working as a paralegal, that experience would be very helpful for your career. Also, I don't think there is a specific path. We have lawyers that started in corporate and then moved into financial services, or others that worked in-house and then moved to private practice or worked as the regulator, and everyone's experience are important and can be very helpful within a team rather than everyone having the same career path.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. I think everyone often feels like there's kind of one way and that's the only way. So it's always nice to hear those different routes. Just looking at some of the audience questions again. Charlie, how does Osborne Clarke's financial services offering stand out in the rest of the legal market?
Yeah, good question. I guess as a firm, we are pretty well known for the work that we do for technology clients. And so you've heard a lot of people talk already about our fintech offering. And I think that's probably one of our strongest areas, is that combination of finance and technology. And we are, I think, one of the leading firms advising in that area. So I guess instinctively when you hear financial services, you think about big banks, and that is an important part of our practice. But as Tom said, we also advise really small, exciting, fast growth fintechs who, are looking to disrupt. They're looking to break the rules. They're looking to bring a real sort of energy, fast growth mentality, and that's quite exciting as a lawyer to try and support that growth. And it's quite interesting as a contentious lawyer because they tend to have a much higher risk appetite than some of our more institutional clients. So I think acting for fintechs is probably one of our strongest suits.
Brilliant, thank you. And then just one final question, Tom, one for you. What qualities would you say make students applying for the firm, whether for vacation schemes or training contracts, what qualities would you say make them stand out?
Wow, I think we like people who are inquisitive, collaborative, who aren't trying to jump ahead of other people, are trying to get to the right place by the best means. We do workshops, and I think the worst thing you could do in a workshop is try and be the alpha in the room telling everyone what to do. That might work at some places. It doesn't tend to work for us. Ask questions, show an interest, do your research, make sure you know the firm well. There are some things that will just annoy some people. If you misspell a law firm's name in an application, it's going to upset people, so don't do that. But no, I think be yourself. Try not to get too nervous, although we're quite forgiving about those things. But be inquisitive, be focused, try to be interested in the things that interest us, and be as collaborative and as entrepreneurial, I guess, as you can be in terms of how you describe what you're interested in, because those are the types of things that we really like.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our panelists as well today. I'm just going to pop up a final poll. Charlie, if you need to head off, happy for you to drop off now. See you later, and thank you very much. I'd love to just find out what you have taken away from today's session. So if you could we'll give you a couple of seconds just to do that, and I'll continue with my roundup. So just another reminder to attendees that we will be sending out a link to the recorded session today, so please do keep an eye out for that. And there will be a survey popping up at the end of the session for you to fill out. It takes a couple of seconds, so we'd be really grateful if you could fill that out and let us know of any future topics you'd like us to cover. And remember to just check our events page for any other upcoming masterclasses, and don't forget to apply for this year's Law Careers Net Live conferences taking place in Manchester, London and virtually, and you can head to the link that Dimitar shared for more instructions on how to apply there. A huge thank you again to our panelists and to everyone attending today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.